So now that we have our east side LEDs wired, we can go ahead and start wiring our servo. So a first step, just like on our west side, is just to make a little slit for our servo wires to come up from underneath. So I'm going to go ahead and just make a little slit here. Make sure it goes all the way through. And then we can go ahead and flip our board over to access the servo wires. So holding the breadboard in place just to make sure it doesn't fall out, I'm going to flip over the board, and here we have our servo wires. So remember, we've got 3 wires. The brown one goes to ground, so I'm going to go ahead and put a jumper there. The red one will go to our 5 volts, so I'm going to go ahead and put a jumper there. And then lastly, our orange one goes to our Arduino, so that's the one that will tell the servo when to rotate. So there's our 3 jumpers. We can go ahead and thread them through. You can see the little slit I created from above, and we're going to just put all 3 of them through. So there's 3 through. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab the breadboard and flip it over again. So here we have our 3 wires coming up. So I'm just going to give them a little tug to get enough length to actually attach them to the breadboard and to the Arduino. And just like on the other side, we're going to take the red and green, just remember that was our 5 volts and ground, and thread them underneath the breadboard. And then we can put them to the front. From there, we can go ahead and put our red wire, which was our 5 volts, in our first row. And we've got a red in the first rail, and then the green in the blue rail, so the second rail. And remember, that's our ground rail. Our Arduino is connected to ground through that rail. So we've got ground and 5 volts, and then lastly, we just need our red or orange wire, which remember that's our Arduino wire. So that one's going to go to pin A0 on our Arduino. So that's the signal from our servo going into A0. And then I'm going to go ahead and just kind of pull some of this excess wire back underneath and flip it over one more time and just do a little bit of wire management, because we don't just want these hanging out. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a couple pieces of tape down, just to leave it, keep the wires a little more organized. You can also, like we did on the west side, is put a little piece of tape around kind of our inputs, so where the jumper wires connect to our servo, just to kind of make sure that those stay in place and don't come off. And then I'm going to go ahead and just put one more piece of tape here just to keep that down, just to keep the underneath a little cleaner. So we can go ahead and just put a little piece of tape down there. And now if we flip it over again, we have our west side servo fully wired. So our last step is doing our ultrasound sensor for our east side.